Okay, so we just recorded our podcast with Emily Getz, who's the founder of the Day One podcast and fertility and mindset coach.
Yeah, it was incredible. I actually, coming into this conversation, talking about fertility, it always feels, at least, for me, because I've had my own journey, a little bit like, oh, it's like heavy and you go back there. But it was such a nice, light, but informative conversation where she just honestly, for us, we were looking for a lot of tools surrounding infertility, how to be more aware, informed, how to be a better friend. And she just really nailed it. She really helped us to kind of give some really, I think takeaways are what we need, right? In situations like tell me exactly what to do in the situation to make it feel a little bit more comfortable for everyone. And we just learned a lot
tangible advice and tools. Well, and I think the biggest takeaway too was just how we kind of talked about mindset and energy and reframing the narrative. And, at the end, she was like, you could take the word fertility away and replace it with, other forms of trauma or loss or anything that you're going through. And I think this podcast is just going to be helpful for so many of our listeners, regardless of what they're going through.
Yeah. And take a listen to decide who needs to be more mindful. Me or Ren.
All right. We shall see. Always a competition. Let's go.
Edit that out.
Okay. We're on.
Rocking and rolling.
Emily Getz,
Fertility
mindset coach and Day One founder.
You did such a good job.
I'm so glad
it was your first time
to do it again. We're so happy to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I always be like, this is so weird when I'm like, it's so fun and it's so exciting to be here when we're going to talk about infertility. But
no, but we make it fun.
Yeah, you have to make it fun.
It's life, right? And it's good to have these conversations. And this is actually our second podcast together.
It is.
You guys did an interview. Well, why does
podcast I've ever done other than this one, actually. So yeah,
you did so good. I mean, it's hard when you're going on a podcast not to talk about your business and to talk about something super personal for the first time. So you kind of hit so many birds with one stone in that interview, because it was all like a kind of a coming out for you. So I thought you did such a good job.
Oh, thank you. Well, you obviously make it so natural and easy to talk about. And I think that's literally one of the beautiful things that that's just missing right now. It's how the dialogue and how to talk about it in this way that doesn't have to be so negative and heavy. And I mean, it's so personal for so many people going through infertility, and every journey is so different. But if there's a way to talk about it that doesn't feel like that, and it feels, like you could chat with your girlfriend and someone knows what to say to actually make you feel better or comfortable, then I think that's the world of a difference. And the more support, the better. So it's really amazing what you're doing. And a lot of people are lucky in Toronto in the community to have someone that's kind of spearheading this and making people feel that they're not alone. And that there's a community there. So why don't you tell us a little bit about exactly what you're doing with your with Day One?
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying that. Yeah. It's one of these things where I've turned my own experience into my career almost. Right. And it's like this, my infertility feels like a bit of a sliding door moment where, I have a 5-year-old son and we got pregnant super easily with him. Truthfully, I didn't even know that infertility really existed. I didn't understand that people can struggle to have babies. Why would I? No one educated me. My GP never educated me. And so, Day One is sort of my kind of a baby that's evolved from our struggle to build our family. And so what Day One is I feel like I'm creating what I want, in real time. And it is a business that offers a community to support, but also there's a big coaching aspect to it around, we have to go through, people that are going through infertility, they're making the decision, they're voluntarily deciding that they're going to go into treatment. You don't have to. A lot of people, actually, I know a couple of my friends, they have one child, they have no child, and they're like, this is a door I'm uninterested in opening. And we forget that we are volunteering to go into it. Right. And I say we have a choice on how to walk it. And what's out there right now is so negative and so hard. And like, who would ever want to go through it at that point? Not to say all of that doesn't exist, but day one is sort of another door. It's like a new door to walk through, a new way to do your fertility. And it comes from my own experience and learning that there is another way. There actually is another way that you can experience this. And you can do that by working with me.
Right. So it's like helping them and like manage expectations, understand like what the journey might be like, right? I feel like that's a part of it too, right? The education is like a huge thing. I think unless you are going through it or have a support like yourself, or you have no idea, to your point. So when it happens to you and you're uneducated or know nothing about it, and it's not happening in your friend group or it's not prevalent in your life, then it is a very isolating experience because you're now just dealing with something that feels horrible and not relatable. So yeah.
Yeah. And like, like fertility touches everything. It's so layered. You know what I mean? Like your relationship, your ability to relate to your friends who you've grown up with your whole life. It's for a lot of us the first time we've dealt with any health issues. Right. It's the first time that we've dealt with anything in the unknown where we don't know how our life is going to work out. People that come, they're like, I'm so type A. I'm so type A. I feel like I'm used to controlling everything and I can't control this. So, and there's gifts in that actually, if you really want to start to look at this in a different way, but, you're dealing with a lot of firsts and you're also grieving a life and the way you thought your life was going to be. And you're trying to digest all of your protocols. So it is very layered when you are going through this, regardless of like which point in the journey you're in.
But maybe we can talk about, because I know you had your own journey. So you said you have a 5-year-old son and you like, what has your, in terms of treatments, maybe you can share with our listeners sort of like what you've been through.
I'm totally happy to share. I just want to go back to say that, just very quickly, it's like, yes, people understand that like how to make a baby. I'm putting in air quotes, but they don't understand like that you make eggs and that like this is your period and this is why you have your period. And like, even when I always say like, I wish my GP in my early 20s was like, let's just do a fertility workup. It's blood work. Yeah. It's like nothing crazy.
And is that something that you can see from an early age if you get tested in your 20s?
Yeah. So you can there's pros and cons. And this is why mindset actually is so important, because you get thrown all of these numbers and you can make decisions on like how you want to interpret them. So some people listening may be like, the doctors of the world will disagree, but you can find out how many eggs that you've had. You are born with the amount of eggs you'll have for your whole life. Some people are born with a lot of eggs. Some people are born with not as many eggs. And all that is telling you is like how your window of conception is. And I would have found out in my early 20s that I'm just someone that was not born with like a huge amount of eggs. So like if I want to have babies, if I want to freeze my eggs, I totally would have frozen my eggs. Like I didn't understand that these things were possible. And it was information I could have found out, I'd say in your late 20s, probably. Early 20s, you're like, fuck this. I never wanted kids, just want to say.
Yeah.
I was like, this is uninterested in this. So you have to do it when you want it, but it's available.
Right. And for men too, right? They can test their sperm 100%. And they can test if they've got good swimmers or slow swimmers. Yeah. Not a lot of swimmers, but good swimmers. There's lots of different things happening. It's not just us ladies, right?
Such a good point. I mean, you could do a whole other podcast on male infertility because everything's assuming it's the woman. I mean, women go through so much testing and so many things before they get their partner to test.
Right. Yeah.
So much. So anyways, that's a really good point. But I was saying to you before we even recorded this, how similar this conversation is to the episode that you did around breast cancer awareness. It's like the same thing, advocating for yourself. It's really scary to do. It's kind of in the same arena. Like,
well, it's both situations too, that until you're put in that situation, once again, you're not really informed about that situation. So all those things, and it's a medical,
Yes. And the mammogram thing, she made such a good point where it's like, maybe it's not common knowledge to get a mammogram at 40, but that's what she recommends. Just like it's not common knowledge to like get your fertility workup when you're in your late 20s, but like that's something that we should all be considering doing. So there is this massive gap in terms of, I think, what we all should or can consider or be educated around, and then what like is normal. And 35 is when your eggs drop. It's like, no, there's women in my group that are 30 that are really struggling right now. So, but to tell a little bit about where I came from in 2019, we got pregnant really quickly again, because that's the trend. And again, I say these, I come on and I do interviews all the time, and I say my story with like, I'm not trying to be like no emotion about it, but when you start to talk about it often, it feels like I'm just like listing things off. It obviously has been an insane 3 years. I mean, we had a late pregnancy loss when I was 6 months pregnant in 2019. And 2 weeks later, my dad passed away. So it was like complete utter chaos. And even though, and this is the other like banana thing in my story, is like, even after that loss, I didn't think that infertility was going to be our problem. I thought it was a fluke thing. I had an external infection. It got in the placenta and my water broke. Like, it had nothing to do with anything other than that. So why would I think any differently? I wasn't sent to a fertility clinic to just do some workup on myself. We tried for a year. We didn't, nothing succeeded. And then I did 3 rounds of IVF in 2021. And because I have a low egg reserve, meaning like I don't have a lot to play with in there, I don't respond to IVF meds. And so we just couldn't get embryos out of that
process for you.
Yeah.
Right.
And then in 2022, January this year, we got pregnant like naturally. And I've never miscarried. So I was like, this is it. I'm the story of like, did you hear Em? She like had the late pregnancy loss and the IVF and all of these things. And then she like relaxed and got pregnant. I was like, it's the story we've all wanted.
Yeah.
And then at 8 weeks, we lost the pregnancy. So it's been, I really believe that I have been put on this planet to do this work. Like, I have been thrown almost every, like an ectopic pregnancy. I have had my right tube removed. Like, the list kind of goes on. But I really believe that I've been through all of this to create day one. Like, I actually, in my heart, like we named, our baby that we lost at 6 months, we named her Ruby. And like, I actually don't believe she was ever supposed to come Earthside. Like, if Ruby was here, day one would never exist. Like, none of this would have existed. So like, there was a purpose there.
That's such a beautiful way to think of it, though. That's like really, really empowering, because that's like, to your point, it's all about mindset.
Yeah.
And you're choosing to think of it in that light, in that way. And, it's whether you've always felt like that or not, but you feel that so strongly that you can tell you're like so passionate about it. That just really goes to show how much you can change your own dialogue.
Well, and I was going to ask that, like, how hard was that? Obviously, you've been through so much, like when you had the loss at 6 months, when you went through 3 rounds of failed IVF, like, obviously you didn't always have this mindset. Like, how did you pull yourself out of that? Because that is so much emotionally to go through. Like, how were you able to do that and come out with such a positive attitude?
Such a good question. So obviously, no, it wasn't like 2 months later, I was like, this is a gift. Like, I was meant to do all this work. It took time, but I actually hired my own coach. Like, I hired my own mindset coach because at the time I hired her, we already had gone through a bunch of losses. And I'm sure a lot of listeners that have gone through this, my relationship was suffering. I was not present with my child, which like was a big problem for me. And I was basically completely distracted by the fact that we were having trouble. And I was like, I can't do this. Like, I need to change. Mm-hmm. So I hired my own coach, not for fertility, strictly for just like my life, and started to learn through her and her program the tools of having the ability to choose our thoughts. And then it kind of continued to be even more layered, where I was like, really becoming aware of how I was looking at my life and then being like, oh, I have a choice on how I'm going to do this. And I have a choice on the thoughts that I'm going to think. And why am I choosing thoughts that aren't serving me? Like these are not serving my life. And so through that work over time, over coaching, I actually replaced like the thoughts that weren't serving me with ones that were, and then felt more like my truth. And in hindsight, I was like, all of a sudden I got inspired to do the podcast. Like things started to, when I started to become open that there was another choice in how I wanted to see my life.
Opportunities kind of.
Yeah, the negative turned into the positive.
And then inspiration and creation and
That's
all
so
this
cool.
stuff.
Well, they say that, right? If you can change a pattern in your brain, it actually changes the neurons, right? So then the path is different. So if you're changing that path
Yes.
to make it positive, like it's cool.
That's
it like
amazing.
actually is gone.
Well, and
like
how
you're
do you-
choosing happier, more like optimistic. I feel like I could use that with some things.
Annie needs a
Like,
Annie needs a mindset
but
coach.
just like, what's the difference between a mindset coach and a therapist?
I was
Because like I'm
literally
like,
just gonna
which
ask
one? I
that.
need one of them right now, and I don't know which one.
Such a good question.
Maybe you
could-
need both.
Oh, God, honestly, I don't have enough time for all this. But yeah,
It's a great question. So therapy is, which I think there is like people that I work with have a therapist and work with me. So there's, you can have both or not, but therapy really dissects. So why are you this way? Looking at your past, figuring out in the past, thinking, going back to serve you forward and giving you tools of how to like come out of that.
okay.
And a mindset coach is really about forward thinking ideas and like becoming aware of how are you thinking and reframing it to move you into a whole other like future in that way, a whole other way of like thinking about how to move through. So it's less like with my clients, we aren't diving into the why they're infertile or why they, are where they are. It's like, we need to move through this.
Giving them tools.
Let's do this, and like, we also like, we want you to live your life, like, so how are we going to give you thoughts, give you a way of being that makes you feel empowered to move forward? Where I sometimes feel like in therapy, which again, like I actually think that there is a place for both, but it can really like, I don't know about you guys. Sometimes I leave my therapy appointments and I'm like, like,
Crying.
it's therapeutic.
Yeah,
like,
it's more cathartic. Yeah.
It's so important to do it. I would always say, like, if you leave a session with me, that you're like, it's like a boost in your fertility. You're like, oh my God, I haven't thought about it like that. Like,
It's spinning the narrative
You know what? It's
to
like
make
talking
it
to
a more positive thought process versus like, because to your point, like that's the kind of thing that weighs down every aspect of your life. And I think especially when it starts affecting your parenting, how you are with your child, your husband,
your friends,
like that is heavy stuff. So for you to be able to take that person out of that, I mean, that's huge.
And, it's also like a lot of people, and, we have a membership that I meet with our members every night at Tuesday night. And a big topic that's been coming up has been about also this massive disappointment in support with their friends. And also like, how do I still stay connected to this group of people who I love so much, who are lapping me, their words, not mine, because I wouldn't think that, but like, or let me say, I used to think that. I don't think that anymore. How do I coexist with them? I feel like I'm losing this group of people that I really love. And so, or I'm walking into family things and I leave feeling so depressed because everyone's, talking to me about why we don't have kids. And we've really been working on changing the narrative around that as well. Because like, there's reasons behind all of that. And you thinking people aren't showing up for you, which actually isn't even the case, is also bringing you down. So there's, again, like I said, there's so many areas in which this touches your life. And I say, like, it doesn't have to.
Right.
Well, maybe you can, because I know we also talked about this, is, how can you be a supportive friend? I mean, we both have people, I have people very close in my life who have had dealt with terrible fertility issues and loss. And, I think it's like a fine line between, obviously you want to say something and you want to be there for someone, but you don't want to be like, am I bringing something up that's going to cause more pain? So how do you coach the friends of people who have been through this? What do you do? What do you say? When do you bring stuff up? When do you check in on your friends?
Especially just given that it's not like, as we always talk about, like a linear journey. Like it's not like one friend might be dealing with like, such a different fertility journey than the other. So it's really hard because it's not like, say this if your friend's going through infertility, right?
Or
like
say this if maybe they're past it and they have that one child or no child.
Right. There's so many different layers and stages to infertility that's like, to me, that makes it even more complicated how to start the dialogue.
Totally. So the first thing I say is that we actually need to have a little bit more empathy for the people that are supporting us. There's an expectation that we have that they know exactly what to do and then are not doing it. And I don't think that's true. Like, I don't think my family is not showing up for me. They're like, I want to do it for her, but like, I'm choosing not to. They're like, I don't know how to, I don't want to upset them. So now I'm not going to. So the silence and the unsupport, we've put meaning to. And we've made a decision that these people that are not supporting us, air quoting, are doing that on purpose. And IVF is 40 years old. So first of all, generationally, like our parents, first of all, it's a taboo topic to that generation. So they don't think they should be talking about it. And then also, like they don't understand anything about it. How do you even support somebody in that? So a lot of people that I work with are really disappointed by their parents, or they don't want to share with their parents. And we want to like, let's baseline this right now. So I think if anyone could take anything from this conversation, it's like to have a bit more empathy for the people supporting us doesn't feel as heavy around the expectation. So I just wanted to level set there. But my thing is like, there is no bad check-in. You don't need to be like, hey, where are you at in your exact fertility journey? It's like, hey, look, I don't know where you're at. I'm just checking in. Like there's no bad check-in, and it can be as small as that. And if you need to put like a reminder, like a weekly like reminder in your own phone, because we get busy. Like that's the other thing. It's not like, again, like you're not there for your friends because you want to be a bad friend to them. Life gets busy and we just like feel like we shouldn't interrupt. But to me, it's like anybody that is going through infertility, it's on their mind all day, every single day. Like even the smile on the face, even wherever it is, like right now I'm talking to you guys and it is on my shoulder. So, literally just being like, I know you're in this.
Okay. So your takeaway is don't worry about that. Anything to just say,
are you good today? How are you doing?
Right.
Or checking in.
Yeah.
Just checking in just to say, what's up? I'm thinking of you.
Yeah. And like, I have it in my phone. I have a weekly like alarm. That's like, I just want to be a constant for this person. And like, my life is busy and that makes me a great friend.
That's a really good tip for me in like every aspect of my life. My alarm's going to be going off all day long. I'm going to set one freaking alarm to be like, message Lauren back.
But you could just have
it's actually an amazing idea, but that's,
if it's not in the calendar, it's not.
You could just have friend check in, and whoever, when that alarm comes on, whatever friend comes in your mind.
No, it's a really nice thing. It's like, who
agreed.
This is the thing. Like, I feel like my life's a little chaotic right now, but I'm like, who isn't busy? Who isn't? Like, everyone has their priorities. And to your point, that is not top of mind for them. They obviously care. Everyone cares, but it's top of mind for you. So it's just so nice for them to know that you're thinking of them. And that could just be it. If like, you just get that thought knowing someone just took some time out of their day to be like, I hope or wishing them well or whatever, like that would be enough.
That would be enough. And people think it needs to be this huge thing.
Yeah. So don't be intimidated by the whole gesture, I guess.
Mine is like micro moments. It's micro. Yeah. It's not big. Like if we want to take this a step further, if you have someone, it is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. So this is a great tip. When someone in your life has had loss, they are in their own calendar. They know the due date. So if you could put that in your calendar, that is like, if we want to level up here, I mean, that is next level.
Right. Like,
so
I know this, and then you send them, I know this day must be really hard for you. I'm thinking of you.
Yeah.
One of my best friends. So I did not put in my calendar my due date from our 8-week miscarriage. I got a thing of flowers at my door, and she was like, just thinking about you today. And I was like, it was one of the nicest things.
Right. Okay. So that's a great example. Whereas like, obviously that's the nicest gesture, but it was bringing up a heavy topic, but you were so, well, who would be sad to get flowers, but regardless, like that was still a very obviously emotional trigger for you, let's say. And it was met with such kindness because that's what you're putting out there. It was the
support. I think back to your whole point, this is so isolating, and any way you can show support, whether it's flowers, a phone call, a message, a card, anything.
I don't know where in the world, I don't know when this happened where people felt, I'll tell you when it happened. It is a taboo topic. Okay. It's come down generationally that we should not be talking about this. So I do think there is something inside all of us, me too. Like I'm in the work and sometimes I'm like, but if we could just bypass that and think of ourselves, like there's no harm ever in anyone in our lives saying, I'm thinking about you. Like,
I think loss in general is just really hard to talk about. Like, obviously, when it comes to fertility and miscarriages, that's an extra difficult subject. But I feel like anytime you know someone where someone has passed, or like, I feel like loss in general is just very hard for people. You know, oftentimes they'll be like, oh, I want to call, I want to write, but like, what do I say?
Do I go to that Shiva? Do I go to the funeral? I was like friends of a friend. Like if you're thinking about it, no one's going to know if I'm there, but I feel like I should go, but I really got to take my kid to this. Like, you know, like that's literally how your mind thinks. It's like prioritizing, but like, okay, so you can't make it to the funeral, but then shoot them a text or like, you know what I mean? It's doing the little things, I guess, that work with your life just to let people know.
I think it just doesn't have to be that deep.
Yeah.
You know, like it just doesn't. Like, I don't need my friends writing me being like, where's your emotional state? I'm actually not, and like that doesn't work for me. Like I don't like getting all gooey, like talking about my feelings. Yeah. I can do it myself, but it's not like, you know, so it's, you don't have to do anything other than like, I'm just point blank. I'm just checking.
And it's not about you. It's not about you. It's about, right. I think people are so caught up in their own, like, how am I going to feel? What am I going to say?
People don't like being uncomfortable. People don't like being uncomfortable and sometimes I think everyone just needs to be okay with being uncomfortable sometimes, to be honest. Like that is not the most comfortable thing you're going to do in the day. You're going to do 5 other great things for yourself. That's not going to be one of them. And like, that's okay. It might not be, you know?
Yeah. And I think that again, like if we just go back to the simplicity of it all, like likely the text back is like, thank you so much for checking in.
You're doing something nice.
You're not opening a Pandora's box, you know? And if you are, how cool is that? That your friend is taking it as an opportunity that they feel comfortable enough with you that they are going to start to open up. So it's a win-win in my book.
That's a cool way to look at it too.
Yeah.
You're just like opening up the conversation. Well, and I also think it depends what position you are to give the support. So like for me, for example, because I've gone through my own journey, I struggled a lot with the fact that like, you know, my journey, I've had 3 losses, but they were all in between my pregnancies. So they were followed by healthy full-term pregnancies. And I never was considered like problematic or infertile because I was having these healthy pregnancies, but they still took a lot of weight on my life because it was a big emotional and interruption to like my trajectory of how I thought my life was going to go. And, a big thing for me is getting back to that. Like that was specific to me. It's very different from your journey. It's very different from every single person has their own thing. No matter how big or small, it's just, I almost thought that because mine wasn't considered, like I wasn't infertile, that I didn't have as big of a right to almost complain about it or feel I knew on the big scheme of the infertility spectrum that mine was here. So that like, where am I to like, you know, be, and people are dealing with so much work, but like, that's just life, right? Everyone, you can look at that in any situation. So, you know, through talking to Emily and different supports, like you kind of feel more validated in those thoughts and feel comfortable sharing them. And when I did, like I had a very close girlfriend go through it, and it was for me, it was extending the friendship, but it was talking to her about it and letting her know how like my journey ended or, you know, how it was going or whatever. And it just brought her peace to the relatability in it. So coming from different than would be coming from someone that wasn't, you know, had no issues. It just was something else that was reassuring and it made me feel good that I could give back to someone that, you know, if I would have had a friend like that in that moment, not that I didn't, I did, but it meant so much to me that to be able to pay it forward then and do that for her. And like, I remember she called me, she was holding his, like, he's like 4 weeks old and she's calling me and she's bawling. She's like, I'm just like, it was such a like mind fuck. Cause it was like, I know how sad she was and where it was. And like, that didn't seem that long ago in my mind. And she's like holding her baby, bawling, being like, thank you so much. Like you're part of the reason he's here. And like, I'm so like, it was just like the most special moment ever. And like, to me, it was just like, honestly, I was just so happy to talk about it with her and make her feel like she's not alone. And it was like life-changing for her. Like those little things go so far. And it's just, yeah, I feel like you had a friend also that had a story very similar to mine that I just like, there's stories that you just hold on to too. She was someone that had multiple kids, but she kept on miscarrying in between. And I just remember being like, look, she had 4 healthy kids and that's what I'm going to have. And you have to like keep the hope too, you know?
Yeah, I want to say 2 things because I think what you're saying is so beautiful. It's like, there are people that go through loss and then they diminish their loss because they're like, well, it's not as important as this person who's done 3 years of this. And every miscarriage is like, you are losing your future. You, as soon as you see those double lines, you see your due date, you start imagining those things. Like it's very hard to not do that. So I just want to say like 3 miscarriages is a big thing. You diminish it. I think you don't give yourself enough, like moments to take a second to think about what you've gone through. And you would not have your kids if it wasn't for those miscarriages. And those were the babies that you were supposed to have. So like, you know, there's a lot to unpack in that as well. But like, I think that
but I don't think I'm alone in that. I think there's a lot of people that feel that way because it's like anything. It's like you don't want to make other people feel more uncomfortable. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, even if you're struggling, I feel like, I don't know, it's so Canadian of us, but like, it's just like, you don't want like someone that's dealing with like, you know, that seems like such a bigger ordeal or on the big scheme. You don't want to take away from that.
For sure.
So it's like a weird...
You don't want to you understand that their struggle might be bigger than yours, but I still think in your own head and the way that you see what you've gone through, it's still 3 losses in between 3 kids. And that is something that you've had to move through. And that is an experience that you can, to your point, offer support through, right? Like, so, because you've got a window into it. Not everyone has a window into it. So, I also think from a support standpoint, something that's really near and dear to my heart, and the way that I support my clients and members, and you know, there's some takeaways here is like, when you're in this journey, it's very hard to keep the belief all the time. So I do a lot of work in just learning to hold any belief, because there's a whole idea where you want to prepare for the worst, which I'll tell you right now is complete fake. Like whoever made that up is like, that doesn't even work. You can prepare for the worst, but you're going to hurt twice. Like you can prepare all you want, but when that loss happens, it hurts whether you believed it was going to happen or not. But I hold having people in your inner circle that is holding the belief for you when you can't is one of the most powerful ways that you can support someone that's going through this. It's like, I know that you don't believe this right now. I will hold it for you. Like if you want to take a week off and you want to think this is never going to happen for you, go, because I'm going to spend the week believing it is. And it's like passing the torch on belief with the people in your own life. And it takes so much pressure off, because when you're in this, it feels isolating in the sense that you have to be the one that holds this dream of yours. And to hold the dream is the most exhausting thing. And then the days you feel you can't hold it and you're in the darkness, you feel like you're never going to get it because now you're not holding it. And so if there's somebody that you can kind of pass that baton to, and even saying, you know, I know we're taking it one step further than the check-in, but like, you can hold that for that person. That's an energy exchange.
Well, it's a lot. Well, I think the whole mindset, because when Lan was saying you were coming on the podcast, I wasn't 100% sure kind of like where the conversation was going to go. But I do think the whole mindset thing and the energy and the attitude I mean, that can honestly be applied to anything, right? And I think that's such a useful tool for any aspect of your life, like where you're going through something heavy, negative. I think it's amazing advice.
So this is another reframe that's really worked for me, and where I'm at right now is like, why not let my fertility circumstance be the gateway into mindset work? Like, why not take this horrible, honestly, like I can say truthfully, it's been the hardest 3 years of my life and the best 3 years of my life. And because I've been introduced to this work, because I'm living on another consciousness, I would never, I don't want to say never, but like probably likely not be interested in any of this if I hadn't been going through it. And so when people are in the depths of it, I'm like, let's work with it.
Yeah.
Like, we're in it. So what are we getting out of it? Well, we're going to get a new way that you can evolve, like as a human. And then what a better mother that you're going to be because you're even doing this type of work. These are the reframes that like help people move forward and then give purpose to where you're at. And then you're coming out of this whole thing because you are going to come out of it.
Stronger and better equipped.
Well, and I was actually going to ask, like, so you touched on that as like, you know, you feel like it's kind of like reframed how you are as a mother. Talk to us about the relationship with the hubby, because I feel like, you know, keeping that spark when you're not having fertility issues is hard. Throw in all this and the weight of this, like how, and you have to have sex at certain times. You got, you know, like the positions, like how's that going? And what are you doing? And what advice can you give to women who are just like feeling like that's a bit of a challenge?
Well, I'll say that it's not always exciting.
Yeah.
But, and me and Ev have gone through different evolutions, I'd say, like, you know, where we've been trying naturally at home month to month, where we've been doing IVF for a year, where we really didn't have any sex for the year because it was just like very medicated. And then now we're back to doing cycle monitoring. So for me, it's been it's less around, and, you know, again, I think you guys can relate to this stuff. It's like, if you're not feeling excited by your partner outside the bedroom, you can't feel excited about them inside the bedroom. Like, you know, so it's like when you're in fertility, you stop doing stuff. Like, you're like, well, I can't go out because I can't drink and I can't smoke and I can't do this. And now I'm going to sit on my couch with my husband. We're going to watch a movie for the 12th millionth time thrown. And then who wants to have sex? Like, nobody. So my advice, things that I think have kept me and Ev going is like, we still do a ton of trips together. We go to concerts together. Like, we are still friends that like socialize. Right. So we keep that alive.
Yeah.
And then it allows us to like keep up having
well,
to
I think
have
that's
sex
just
all
like
the time.
relationship advice too. Like, yeah, if you're like, generally, if you're friends and you like what's, you know, going on, it heats things up in the bedroom.
Yeah.
But with fertility, you feel like you can't be, it's like for a lot of people listening, it's like you have to be gluten-free, dairy-free, you can't drink, you can't smoke, you can't blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, I'm a partier. Me and Ev are our foundation
is partying.
Like, yeah. Like, I'm like, that's the truth. Like, we used to go out all the time. We did concerts all the time. Like,
that's your vibe.
Yeah.
That's what you guys like to do.
And then all of a sudden it's like taken from us. And we're like, oh, but how do we find this again?
Yeah.
And then people that are in fertility, they just give up on this part of their relationship. So I'm really proud. I really am proud of the work that Evan and I have done to like keep that going and to be okay. Like, for me to be like, I am going to drink. I am. And I
feel bad about it and we're on board.
Yeah. But I'm able to not feel bad about it because of the work that I do and the support that I have. But I don't want to sit here and say we're perfect. Like, there are months that go by that I feel guilty for everything that I do, or that, like, you know, we're off kilter a bit. But I think that ultimately this has brought us together and we're really good partners, and he has shown up as a part of the team.
But even that is like mindfulness in itself, right? Like, to be able to put that out there, so that can be like something, shift the narrative once again. Like, it sucks that we can't do this, but look what we can do, and we can still do this together. And that's like work that like you might not have done otherwise,
100%.
right? Like, once again, if this wasn't your fertility journey, then you would have just gone complacent in your marriage, or, you know, gotten distracted or just not put the energy or the love that needs to go into it. And like, you guys went the extra mile and like did that maybe earlier than other people would have, or been proactive. But you know what I mean? It probably helped so much in such different ways by just having that different mindset.
It's such a great point. It's like, again, it's, I'm on this planet. I am alive right now. And I refuse to say that the last 4 years have been like a waste. Like, I just can't. We've gone on insane trips. We've done some amazing things. Like, I want to live my life still and still go towards this goal of mine. And I think I hear, and it makes me so sad when people, start to engage with me where they're like, I feel like I've wasted the last few years, or I feel like I'm trying to catch up to my friends or things like that. It's like, that's so sad, because life is short.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you cannot compare. You cannot compare. Like, to your point, it's everyone's journey is so different. And I think, again, back to that education, going into this whole fertility journey, knowing that yours might be totally different.
And also it's this idea of like, I'm only going to be happy once I have the baby. I'm only going to be happy. And it's like, well, that is really hard, because now you're saying you are not happy on your entire journey to get there. And
what's going to change when that baby comes in?
Yeah.
And also it's like baby, like, not people going through infertility that doesn't have a baby, they don't fully get this, but it doesn't fill that void. I did tarot cards reading, and I got pulled this all about the baby. And one card that got pulled was romance. And I was like, oh, like, okay. I was like, what's this? And they're like, no, the question was like, what's taking the baby so long? Like, why isn't the baby coming? That was the like reading, whether you believe in this or not. And they pulled the card romance, and she was saying to me, it's like, you're asking the baby to come from a place of lack, like that it's going to fill a void, and you need to fall in love with the life that you have. It's too much pressure for this baby to like come and fill a void for you. Like, you have this amazing life. Go live your amazing life. Go do all the things that you need to do. But like, you're creating an environment that the spirit is like, this is too much pressure.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Which is maybe, and I know to your point, like, this is probably so annoying, but there are so many stories where it's like, I'm done. I've finished. I'm living my life. I'm going to love the life I live and like put this behind me. And that is when so many of those stories come up, that it's like, oh, just got pregnant naturally.
But what if it just was that way while you were going through it?
Right.
Why one or the other?
Yeah.
Just food for thought.
This has been very, very interesting, because it's about the journey. It's about the energy. It's about tools that can help your friends. There was so
many good takeaways for all the people involved in this, which I think is really what we wanted to nail. Cause I feel like we've all been there, everything under the sun. If you're feeling isolated and alone and you don't have tools, resources, or education, it's going to make you uncomfortable. So the more people talk about it, the more the dialogues out there.
Follow Emily Getz. Day one.
Yeah. Day one fertility. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming and talking
so much,
to us.
Emily.
Thank you guys.